Hey, what's up, everybody? It's me, the notorious MJH, and I have a hangover, people. Yes, I do. I have a big, bad headache, and I've been in bed all day, and it's like morning to me, so good morning, everybody. And tonight we have our friend Andrew Castanuela. He's running for U.S. Senate in the state of Texas, the great state of Texas, Reagan Republican. And, of course, we have our co-host, Dolly Miller-Brennan, and co-producer also, actually. And just a quick announcement, the MJH experience with Dolly Miller-Brennan, we're going to start doing that 5 minutes a week, or at least I am. I mentioned it to Dolly. I'm not sure if she's going to be here every night, but she's definitely welcome to whenever she can. But yeah, we're going to add a couple of segments to the show, one of them being WTF News. And what that is weird, strange news. Like this story that popped up on my teletype, my news feeds today. Florida man denies cocaine found in his buttocks is his. And yeah, we just we'll probably talk about that tomorrow night. Tonight we have Cass with us, and we're going to be serious and address the issue of border security. There's that issue with Arizona and the immigrant. They want to keep the immigrants out and they want to protect the border. And this pertains to Cass's state, the state of Texas. They recently had a bad shooting, and it does pertain to border security. So we're going to get into that tonight. But join us here tomorrow night, and we're going to start. We're going to start our new weekly every weeknight at 7. And let me see. Oh, you know what? I wondered why you guys weren't saying anything. You see, I mute everybody, including myself, when the intro music is playing. And I unmuted myself, and I switched pages to pull up my blog to read that news. And I forgot to unmute Dolly and Kat. Sorry about that, guys.
That's okay.
You with me?
We're here.
Okay. So how's everybody doing tonight?
All right, Mike. How about yourself, Dolly?
I'm doing great. As Mike just discussed, that we're looking at the border security. And, of course, one thing that is probably interesting to a lot of people, the Mexican pirates on Lake Falcon. And this woman had said that she and her husband were searching for a submerged Catholic church when these boats started chasing her, shot her husband in the head, and then she tried to pull him up on her water ski, and she couldn't do that. And then when she asked to look for the body, the Mexican authorities said, she's the one that threw her husband in the lake. She's the one that did it. We had nothing to do with it. But yet when she came into shore, those people that had helped her, an unidentified man, he said he witnessed the boats chasing her as she made her way back into U.S. waters. So Mexico is refusing to look for this individual. And, of course, she's asking the U.S. government to try and intervene. So we wanted to get your thoughts on that, Cass, because you would know more about border security.
Well, yeah, just want to kind of, before I get into that, I want to say that the news thing that Mike's going to be doing tomorrow, WTF, boy, that sounds pretty interesting. Something I'd like to listen into tomorrow as well. But moving on to the border security issue, yeah, actually that's a pretty hot topic, and I've been reading so many different stories in reference to what happened and how it happened. Watch some of the video feeds that you see on the internet and stuff along those lines. And, and I'm trying to take a satellite view from this whole perspective instead of just, getting emotionally charged and, start, spraying weapons right off the top and finding out who did it and what did it and, just start, like a gunslinging contest. So I'm kind of just taking a step back and taking a look at exactly what did or didn't happen, how it happened, and so forth, because it's kind of hard to get a lot of the information. But before I go there, I was wondering, what do y'all think about it first? Your opinion.
Mike, you got some thoughts? Well, I'm looking at, for one thing, they were in Mexican waters, all right? So that can be an issue there. They could be in Mexican waters. However, in Mexican waters, and they wouldn't be that far over into them, there's still kind of an international safety zone there to shoot someone in the head. And I noticed that he was also an oil worker. Now, I don't know if there's any connection but it seems unlikely to me that she would put herself at such risk to do something. I know charges have been filed against her, and they're refusing to look for the body. I would think that if this had happened on the reverse, I would think they would have demanded that the U.S. be looking for this body, and the U.S. would, of course, acquiesce and would have looked for it.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a problem. Myself, I think there's a problem with pirates controlling the waters, not just there but everywhere. So what do you think, Cass? And what can we do about this?
Well, it's interesting you say that because it's an international situation all tied into one, and you're looking at border security, and you're looking at illegal immigration issue. You're looking at individuals who are having in the American side of the house, on the American side, who are upset with what's going on with the immigration issue and illegal immigrants coming to the United States and using our services. Then you flip to the other side, and you have the drug cartels, and the violence is all along the border. So you can just see it's just a cake, a powder cake, just waiting to explode, and any little thing can kind of set it off, to be honest with you. And we're not sure exactly in what direction it may end up going. And the first thing right off the top, in reference to border security, I strongly believe every American has every right to defend their land against any individual who's trying to come in and take that over. For instance, on the border, you have a lot of private land that belongs to a lot of Texas residents, or let me phrase that, Americans. And as you have individuals who cross illegally into the United States, they're going to come across into those lands. And if they in any way threaten the American homeowner or property, just like here in the United States, you have a right to defend yourself. And if you use lethal force, then you need to use lethal force. I think that's one of the biggest proponents of why we need a Second Amendment, a strong Second Amendment continue to be enforced. The right to our bear arms, the right to protect our property, the right to protect our families. And that's something that, there was an article the other day about saying how the United Nations is trying to pass a treaty to where we are, as Americans, will end up our right to lose our right to bear arms, which is really devastating if that such a thing were to happen. Now, in reference to this situation particularly, you have a couple that was on the Mexican side of the border. There's been reports by the Department of Public Safety, Texas Department of Public Safety, as well as other individuals, even the sheriff down there in Zapata County said the same thing, saying, hey, look, you be careful on these waters because, there's been known to be pirates on the lake who's going to go end up shake you down and take some money or rob you or even the drug cartels. As I was reading the history of that specific lake, it goes way back to the bootlegging days when you used to smuggle alcohol through that lake. And it's actually very prime when you think about it to smuggle drugs because you got this body of water that separates the United States from Mexico, and at night you can just move, drugs right across into this open area, and unless you have, the latest technology to view in on that, whether that's, night vision or satellites or drones, you're not going to end up catching any of these guys moving a lot of drugs through there. I mean, if we used to move liquor through there back to the prohibitions, what's to say we're not going to end up moving drugs as well?
They can move with impunity, is what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Coast Guard, is that their jurisdiction?
Well, you see, that's interesting you say that because that's actually one of my proposals in reference to border security. Although you think the Coast Guard protects the coast, but, I've been stationed in another place, like, for instance, Arkansas, where the Coast Guard was actually inland. It was on mainland. There was no body of water around. So I'm gonna prematurely assume that if they can do that, then they can control the waters on the borders between, like this lake, for instance, Mexico and Texas. I mean, it's a pretty big lake. We're talking like 60 miles long. And if you really take a look at the satellite view or even just a Google map or MapQuest view, you can see how big it is in reference to that. So the Coast Guard, I don't see any reason why the Coast Guard should not be able to go in there and protect those borders as well.
Well, I think they can.
So I can pull it up?
Falcon Lake.
Falcon Lake, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
I think they
okay.
can.
Falcon Lake.
Because my nephew is in the Coast Guard for years, and he for years was stationed in Searchlight, Nevada.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that's inland. And I legally am a member of the Coast Guard because I keep renewing my merchant marine license. You know, I mean, I don't do anything, and I'm sure they're not going to want me, but legally I have to be a member. And I do believe they can search on land.
And that's what I was kind of contemplating, because when you look at the map of the lake, it's hard. I couldn't distinguish, you know, where does the American side and where does the Mexican side, you know, begin.
Unless I think that's probably what happened. They got caught on the wrong side.
Well, when I was looking at and like I said, I've been looking at a lot of newspaper articles in reference to that. When you look at supposedly where they might have been, and there's so many different stories, to be honest with you, out there that I read, you know, from ABC to other news reports and some gazettes and stuff along the line, where they were supposedly at was really kind of deep inland in Mexico. I mean, we're talking on the other side of the lake in a kind of cul-de-sac. Where, you know, you could easily be shot from land if they wanted to kind of do that. So they were pretty much in a crevice way on the Mexican side. They weren't anywhere near the middle, according to, you know, some of the sources of what we're seeing in the newspapers. I think I was reading the Austin Statesman is one specific one that I was looking at. And I guess some of the reports saying that they were there last August already back there, and they hadn't, and looking at this ghost town, I guess what they wanted to take pictures of back in the day, and on the Mexican side of the border. And so since nothing happened in August, I'm going to assume that they could go back and take pictures again or do whatever. So evidently it was not the first time they've pretty much crossed into to the other side and reference to that. But it goes right back to an international situation. Of course, Governor Perry is, you know, sounds like he's putting an ultimatum with the president of Mexico saying, hey, you know, we want 48 hours to give me a call back to let me know, you know, what's going on. And it goes back to sensational journalism, whether he said it or not, I'm not sure, but they're trying to say, you know, when you call me, you better know where the body is, kind of mentality.
Well, you know, Mexico, Argentina, Bolivia, Brazil, Chile, Costa Rica, Ecuador, El Salvador, and Nicaragua, Paraguay, and Peru have all filed briefs against the Arizona law, stating that they cannot prevent illegal aliens from coming in because it affects international relations. And I wondered how you felt about that. I know Mexico is now building a border to keep Guatemalans out. You know, so in other borders, in Korea, they either shoot you or imprison you. In Iran, they either hang you or imprison you. So how can they say that this is going to create an international incident? So I was wondering what you were thinking on that.
Well, honestly, if I use my bluntness, that's just a crock, and I'm being nice, and I won't finish the rest of that sentence, you know, because, you know, who in the heck are you going to tell us? Who the heck are you going to tell us what we can or cannot let into our country? You know, and that's one of the biggest things that I'm having with the United Nations and international security and in this world government, to where it goes back to what I'm talking about, the United Nations trying to pass a certain treaty, and that's the difference of how they can backdoor our Constitution, supposedly, is that to pass this treaty, and it says that, you know, pretty much you're going to have to outlaw certain handguns throughout, you know, the world and stuff like that, or weapons. Well, there's no way that our Senate ratifies that treaty whatsoever. If they do pass such a thing, or even if our president even accepts that treaty, or even our ambassador even agrees to that, you know, we're the United States of America. Okay, nobody's going to tell us what to do.
Well, Governor Brewer asserts that the opinions of these foreign governments have no bearing on whether a state providing law, you know, for cooperative enforcement of federal immigration complies with U.S. Constitution, that they have no bearing in that area. In addition, you know, the foreign government brief raises issues that are actually, I think, unsupported by the facts and the records, and have little relevance to the issues presented in the immigration laws.
Mm-hmm. Well, the immigration laws are actually federal laws. Okay, that's first and foremost. That's Article 1, Section 8 of the U.S. Constitution that specifically states those are federal laws. The concern, though, unfortunately, I look at it from the Arizona law, is that, and this is where when I look at immigration reform in general, I look at it three forms or three phases that we got approaches. One is enforcement of our borders or border security. The second one is policy reformation or policy reorganization, where we have to look at our federal laws to modify them or amend them to support our local law enforcement, to give them the authority and empower them to do what they need to do to enforce our federal laws. And, of course, the third one is, and importantly, is that is citizenship responsibility. And it goes back to, how the United States citizens have to be themselves the enforcers of the laws. Just no more than, you have crime watch or crime prevention in neighborhoods, and if you see something illegal, you call it in. There should be no reason why United States citizens should not be able to call a hotline and be able to say, hey, look, I know this person's over here illegal, and then they go and look into it and make sure if it is or it isn't. Because to some degree, the American citizens have to hold responsibility for what they're letting happen in their communities, and businesses hire illegal aliens, and how it hurts the economy in certain ways, and the wage difference, and all the other things that that's brought up a lot of emotional discord within the country.
Let me turn that down. In Israel, Bibi Netanyahu is now giving. They're now going to institute a loyalty oath to the citizens of Israel coming in, to people coming into the state of Israel. And I see nothing wrong with that, to protect their country. And yet we're not allowed to have even border security. And I wonder what what would be your thoughts on such a loyalty oath?
Well, the interesting thing is, though, if we fall into the sentencing of the New York bomber, who was an American citizen and took an American oath that said he would support, and defend the Constitution of the United States, which is an oath you have to take in order to be a U.S. citizen. Now, he did that oath, and the judge said, were you aware that you took that oath? He goes, yes, I was aware that I took that oath, but yet you still wanted to kill Americans. He goes, yes, I lied. Okay, so, a person can raise their hand and take an oath or say loyalty, that they're going to be loyal to a certain government or organization or whatever it may be, but it's really going to come down to brass tacks of what they really do believe and what they really don't believe. Sometimes when I'm doing crisis intervention and I have a suicidal patient, I may have a non-suicide contract in front of me saying, hey, look, you're going to sign right here saying that you're not going to commit suicide, and if you are thinking about it, you're going to call the 911 or you're going to call somebody, and we're going to get you some help. Well, that's really not even legally binding, to be honest with you, because the individual can still go ahead and do what they can sign it, still do whatever they want to do. So, I think it's more of a good show that saying, hey, look, now we got you documented, or now you're publicized that you are willing to do this. But whether they follow through or not, that's a whole totally different question.
So you're saying it's more of a PR move, or saying that when you come into this country, you have to take a loyalty oath, and if you don't do it, and we catch you doing something, we can prosecute you, where if we didn't have the oath, we might not be able to prosecute you because you never said you were going to be loyal?
Well, if somebody, for instance, an American citizen who goes in and takes the oath to be a U.S. citizen is going to take the oath. If they violate their oath, that raises a good legal question. I wonder, can you legally go after them because they violated their oath? I mean, that actually, if you can, then that's the reason why I'm trying to go after, President Obama with health care. In the Constitution, it states right there specifically, what the president's oath will be, and it says that, he will not do this, this, and this, and by him passing health care, knowing that it's unconstitutional, violated his oath of office, and therefore he should be terminated.
I think I love you.
I mean, I posted that on my WordPress site where it's specifically, and I highlighted the part where that would say this is his violation of his oath. He's not taking his oath to the Constitution like he said he was. He's our last line of defense, and if he doesn't support the Constitution, then how in the heck are we, everybody else, to support the Constitution? Oh,
I agree with you completely. And also on that health care bill, my best friend's ex-husband has a big real estate firm, and he sent out emails that said, sell your house by the end of the year, because there's going to be a 3.8% tax tacked on to the sale of your home. So if you have a $100,000 home for sale, next year you're going to pay the federal government an additional $38,000 out of the proceeds of that sale. Mm-hmm. And that, my purpose for bringing this up is to relate back to what you said. This was tacked onto the health care bill. Mm-hmm. We need someone like you to look after us and say, one thing, they didn't read the bill, no one knew what was in it, to say, okay, if this is going to be health care, there's going to be nothing else included in this.
Yeah, that health bill has so many tax programs in there, and one of my biggest concerns is what people don't realize is that, you know, now all our health information is going to be, at least those who get Medicaid or federal services, whether that's even VA, even TRICARE, or even if Medicaid pays for some of those programs. Now you're going to have a central database that's going to have everybody's health care on this federal system, to where now they're going to have privacy to all my information. You know?
Absolutely. Look at all the people on Medicare.
Mm-hmm. And so
it's another step towards Big Brother is watching. That's what the health care bill is all about, I'm telling you.
Oh, I agree with that.
But, go ahead.
I was just going to say our Attorney General here in Virginia, Ken Cuccinelli, he filed a lawsuit against the United States government when Congress passed that health care bill.
Mm-hmm. So did our
attorney. A couple other states.
There's about 13 states right now, including Greg Abbott, the Attorney General for the state of Texas, who have filed a lawsuit against the federal government for that health care bill. And, I mean, there's so many. I mean, you could quote any article or good portions of the articles of the U.S. Constitution that will automatically state how it is unconstitutional. But you know, we've let them pretty much change the rules of the game while they've been in office, and they, meaning the politicians, you know, to the point that we're having to go to court in order to prove something's unconstitutional, and that's ridiculous. That's where the
health care bill is. It's about so much more than just health care, and you know, people don't realize it. You just go, oh well, you know, it isn't guys for the elderly and the people who can't afford health insurance, and you know, they're playing that end up. Oh yeah, everybody will have health care coverage. But what they don't read is what they're going to be sacrificing, which is their rights and their freedoms.
Mm-hmm. It's exactly it. You're sacrificing your right to make money. You're sacrificing your tax brackets. You're sacrificing your right to privacy. You know, the list just continues to go on about the different addendums to the health care bill that people didn't realize.
And it's not optional.
No.
No, it's not optional. You can't go, oh no, I don't want to do it. I don't want to rely on the government for health care. I'll just either pay for it myself or whatever, get my own health care. No, you can't do it like that. You can't keep the government out of your business after this bill is actually put in effect, if it is ever actually put in effect.
Cass, what would be your proposals for border security? What would you change inside of our security program now? Because they're saying they have deported more illegal aliens, yada, yada, yada. But they're far behind the Bush record in 2007. So what they're telling us is all semantics, you know, it's all smoke and mirrors. And what kind of a proposal would you put into motion for border security?
Well, I'm glad you asked, Dolly, because that's actually what we kind of started the conversation on. And I'm glad you said smoke and mirrors, because it all depends what research you go to. There's some research from the Peter Institute that specifically states that, you know, illegal immigration to the United States has significantly dropped over the last year because of the recession, and people aren't coming over here. And of course, some people say, well, that's because it's the Arizona law. Well, no, that's because it's economics, to be honest with you. But, you know, whatever you want the smoke and mirrors to look like is what's going to turn out to be. But in reference to the border security, like I said, there's three components that I kind of focus on, and that is the enforcement perspective, one of them, and that is the people the right to defend their land in the United States. I think that's bread and butter in the Constitution, and people should have the right to defend their land against anybody who is trying to invade their land and cause harm or imminent danger. From that perspective, we move on to I support increasing without increasing spending, but increasing the amount of immigration agents. And that, once again, goes about increasing to 20,000 immigration agents or border patrol, whatever we want to call them at that point. And that is putting, 10,000 more border agents on the borders to enforce our federal laws, which, they continue to say that it's their responsibility versus the state's responsibility. The other 10,000 agents are going to, like I said, they're going to enforce the federal laws throughout the United States between, cover to cover, from the west coast to the east coast and north to the south coast, whether it's all metropolitan areas and That way, it goes back to, people calling a hotline or something like that, and you have an ICE agent that's able to respond versus waiting for them to, forever to get into the process. And that does, like I said, does not require increased spending or increased taxation, because all you're transferring is $1 billion in the Department of Homeland Security's one agency to another agency, which would be the Department of Immigration Enforcement, and that pretty much covers the cost and benefits for those 20,000 agents. The other thing is to increase the use of military technology. I'm glad to see that the drones are flying in the area and looking for, drug smuggling and illegal immigration issues. But you can also start utilizing, some sensors that you can place in certain areas to where you automatically know. And I think they're already somewhat using that to some degree, is to, when somebody's crossing, your sensors go off. And then therefore you can go ahead and respond with your agents that need to enforce that. And it goes back to what you were saying, Dolly, about the use of the Coast Guard in certain areas. I mean, if you have a body of water like Falcon Lake, then you can have our American citizens who can enjoy the lake, at least on the American side of the lake, and then have the Coast Guard who's patrolling it. I mean, that makes a lot of good sense in my perspective. The other thing is to amend the federal legislation on immigration to empower our law enforcement capabilities, whether it's the city law enforcement, the county law enforcement, or even the state law enforcement, to implement and support federal laws. That way you don't need an Arizona law that comes and says, okay, now we have to rewrite the law of immigration so that we can do something about what you're not doing. And that's really what the Arizona law is coming down to, is that the federal government is not doing their job at enforcing their own laws. By rewriting the legislation, you end up giving the states the ability to assist the federal government in enforcing those laws. The other things I'm also looking at is the use of the National Guard. And I was reading this also earlier. It said Governor Perry was asking the federal government for 1,000 National Guard more to put on the border. Now, if I'm correct, the last time I remember, the National Guard falls under the governor, does it not?
It does.
Okay, so why am I going to ask the federal government whether I can use my National Guard on my border?
That makes a lot of sense. I know you also mentioned something I found quite interesting, and that is regard to private citizens, of course, along the Texas border and some of the farmers along the Arizona border that had been murdered. So going back to that concept of yours, my question is, what legal protection would they have in regard to defending their property, other than just the right to defend their property, and to use arms if necessary to defend it, because the ones coming in have arms?
Well, and that in itself, if they have arms, you pretty much justifying why you had to use lethal force. I mean, if somebody comes up to you with a weapon, and you have a weapon, you pretty much equal the equation out from that perspective. Do you see what I'm getting at? Now, as far as what legality they have, is the same legality they have as if another American citizen came and walked into their household and tried to kill them. What legality does he have to protect himself?
And now what we're finding is you can protect yourself against another American citizen, but if an illegal alien comes into your property, our country is disallowing your ability to protect yourself. And how can we change that?
Well, that goes back to federal legislation, where you end up having to revamp the federal legislation to provide that. The concern, though, I'm going to be honest with you, the concern is, though, is that because this is an emotionally charged issue, you're going to have some people who are going to just turn it into more of a hunting fest, because there's also that people haven't realized is going on or has gone on in the past, and that is the recruitment of illegal aliens and turn it into a sport, to where you let them loose, and then you go, and they don't have weapons or anything themselves, but you go turn it into a hunting party, like as if you're going deer hunting or something, and you can go see if you can kill yourself an illegal alien. I've heard some of those stories that are coming out within some of the border states, and that would be the only concern is you have as people, the American citizens still hopefully practice their Christian moral standards of when you should take a life and when you shouldn't. Not that Christ ever said you should take a life, but he's at the same time is going to want you to defend yourself and your family.
So what you're saying is, if the federal government, or what I think you're saying is the federal government would step up to its responsibility and patrol the borders and secure the borders through some of the measures you have outlined, the rest of these things wouldn't happen.
Exactly. You would not have to have, like in Dodge City, everybody trying to enforce the law and protect themselves. You bring law and order into that area by having, those agencies who are responsible for protecting and enforcing those laws, and expanding that just not to the federal government, but also giving it to other law enforcement. Now, like I said, I've had once lunch with a police chief here in the state of Texas, and he pretty much said his opinion on that was that it's very difficult for a city. This is a city police chief who said that it's hard for them to really enforce immigration laws when they got so many other things that are going on, and plus they look at it from the training perspective and stuff like that. So even if we expand the legislation to say, okay, we're empowering you to enforce these standards within the federal legislation of our immigration system, two things. One, they would need the training to be able to know exactly how to do that. And then two, they would end up having to pretty much give them, and I hate to say this, but the option to do it, because primarily it should be the federal government's responsibility to enforce the border versus using resources from local counties and city municipalities who are already on a tight budget and really can't enforce a lot of extra issues and stuff in reference to that, especially if you're going to put them in a jail where you may not even get reimbursed for the cost and so forth.
So what you're saying is the lack of federal cooperation in securing our borders is putting undue responsibility on local and state officials and actually increasing the potential for danger and for people to engage in vigilante groups. So you're saying that by not securing our borders, are you saying the federal government can actually be responsible for making it more dangerous?
Exactly. I mean, because they're not enforcing, they're not securing our border. I mean, plain and simple. So what people will do is what you have is what's going on in Arizona. Well, let us go ahead and defend ourselves and let us write our own state legislature, our own laws specifically state somewhat similar to yours or similar to yours that say we can do this, this, and this, and this. And once they start doing that, then not only is it starting to affect the Constitution of the United States, you're starting to question a lot of other things whenever the federal government doesn't step in.
So what we're saying is the Constitution is a very well-written document. It's still relevant today, and if we pay attention to that and live within that, and if we need to make an amendment, think it out carefully and write out carefully word legal amendments, that it's going to ease the border. It's going to ease the border problem, and it's also going to ease the burden on state and local governments. As you said, the one police chief said, hey, we've got things to take care of here. We can't afford to take care of everything else. So it eased the burden upon them. Each state and municipality is able to take care of themselves and let the federal government do its job to secure the border. It would help us all.
That's exactly it. When I was living in Phoenix for 2 years, that was one of the things, and this was back in 2006, 2008, and this is when Sheriff Arapai, I want to make sure I pronounce his name right, and there was concern about him rounding up, illegal immigrants and then transporting them to the border to drop them off. Well, to some degree, everybody says, well, that's a good idea. That's your responsibility. You're law enforcement. And to a great degree, that is probably pretty accurate. But at the same time, though, the county of, and I'm trying to remember what Phoenix County falls into, and I don't want to say I forgot which one it is. But anyway, Maricopa County, that's where you go.
Yeah, that's right.
Maricopa County collects taxes to enforce the county sheriff and his deputies to secure or to enforce, those laws within the county. We didn't pay you to go take this guy or paying for this guy to go all the way to the border using, your police car and using your police time on your payroll or anybody else's payroll, because when you or your deputies take anybody out of the county to the border, that means you and your deputy are out of commission for securing or doing your job with the county. You see what I'm getting at?
Yes, absolutely. I see what you're saying. Is to me, it all relates back to the federal government not doing its job. If it secures the borders, we don't have these problems. Not that there aren't going to be any problems. You're always going to have a few seep through. But now it's just a deluge because they're not doing anything. So it's just totally open season. And that allows all these vigilante groups, everyone else to get involved, all state and local municipalities, and it's costing us financially a lot more.
It really is, because even the economically the border towns. You know, whether you talk about Paso, Laredo, there was a nice resort that everybody used to go to in the other side of the border when I was in Arizona. And they said, oh, man, this is the place you need to go to. I mean, they got a nice hotel. You know, it's very relaxing. You know, all that tourism that happens around those border towns, even, you know, in San Diego, along those lines, you know, it starts cutting off some of the economic viability for those cities that kind of need that tax base to kind of run some of their programs. So it's really turning into a significant issue. Create fear, and I can understand people want justice, and that's kind of like where I'm looking at why I said that my platform, my candidacy stands on two things: is jobs and justice. But justice means we got to take a look at this prospectively. You know, take a look at this situation of the shooting incident, and let's find out what the facts are. You know, there was a young lady who blogged on my website, and I kind of gave her my opinion of what I thought, and she wasn't too happy about it. I think more or less because of the fact I didn't, you know, grab my shotgun, go over there and start shooting and firing away. And I said, that's not the kind of individual I go to. You know, any military person says, hey, you don't go charging up a hill just to charge up a hill. You better have a definitive action plan of why you're going to charge up the hill, what's your objective, what you plan to achieve, and when you do achieve it, when you plan to come back. You know.
Well, that's one reason we need you in office is because of that strong military background. I'm not saying we need a military government. I'm saying that we do need some individuals with that kind of background in office so that we can talk about our national security. Mm-hmm. And I used to love Laredo, not anymore. I used to love El Paso, and I can remember you. And this was back in 2006 and 2007. You come into the airport in El Paso, the National Guards were in the airport with weapons they could carry on their back, and they patrolled the airport and they kept it safe. And you walked in. You got off that plane and you felt so safe and so secure. And like I said, I used to love Laredo. It's a totally different story now. Which brings me up to another question in regard to National Guards and the Coast Guard. God bless them all. Is firms like Blackwater. You know, what kind of future would you see for something like that? Like we send Blackwater in, and other countries, other businesses like that. We send them in for protection into other countries. They kind of pick up the slack. Like I was a Jackson Brown fan, you know, I know God will watch my back, but just in case I pick up the slack, and we kind of send them in like a Jackson Brown song to pick up the slack, where perhaps our troops just can't handle it all. What would be your thoughts about companies like Blackwater being engaged to help protect our borders?
Okay, well. Now, that's a very touchy subject. But let me go ahead and give you what I would call my premature response to that in reference to it. One would be is that if a private industry wanted to become, and I don't want to use the word mercenary, but a security agency, so to speak, to enforce
like
security. Yeah. Then I feel very uncomfortable at this point, you know, until I can be convinced otherwise. And then I'm very flexible. I'm willing to listen and reason. But I'm very uncomfortable with the United States backing, saying, okay, we're going to subcontract out our security services to these ex-military people or Navy SEALs or Special Forces or whatever their background may be to carry out these operations. For the United States. I think we have strong military men and women that can do that, and if we don't have enough of them, then maybe we need to start recruiting more. And the reason is because there's no control, so to speak, management control over the situation of what they do and what they don't do. And it's just kind of like I'm thinking back here where I'm at. You know, I work for Central Texas MHMR, Mental Health and Mental Retardation. But we're in the process in the 1 to 3 years where we're going to be outsourcing a lot of our services, but yet we're going to be the local mental health authority, which means we would authorize, services to be subcontracted out. Now, if whoever we subcontract out does not provide quality service or for whatever reason, it's going to still come back to us to be responsible for that care, even though somebody else provided it. So I would prefer the federal government or the United Department of Defense say, hey, look, great, have your security company If they want to, if some country wants to hire you, go for it. If we maybe want to hire you for it, then we're going to hire you maybe for something other than representing, the total interest of the United States foreign policy, whatever that may be. I would see hiring those individuals more for a single special ops kind of CIA kind of covert operations kind of things versus, having a blanket security force already on board.
Well, this goes back to what you had said previously about more training. So what would you consider, say, the concept of a new unit of the military that are specially trained for border security, and this is what they do. They're specially trained for that. It's a military unit that's stationed on the borders, and this is their job, such as would be their job to go into Iraq, Afghanistan, or wherever they had to go. But to have like special forces, the elite forces, special forces trained just to handle border security, which create a new branch of the military, would also create new jobs. Of course, they're government jobs, but nevertheless, what would your thoughts be on something like that?
Well, actually, on my website, I kind of endorse one of the things when I'm looking at my long vision of the Department of Defense, and one of the things I would like to see happen is what, unfortunately, is not happening in Mike's state, and that's that joint forces kind of thing. But when we have a joint forces special elite team, whether it's Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, even some Coast Guards, whatever it may be, of their special elite forces. I guess if you use a metaphor for it, would be kind of like that G.I. Joe kind of thing movie that came out, where they just grabbed from certain people, made a specific force to kind of implement our policy. Now, I believe we're going to need that component within our Department of Defense for carrying out specific tasks that we need to see happen. Now, just to make it specifically for border security, I think this can be probably easily more resolved with the resources we have right now. But I'll tell you what, if I wanted to, I don't know, let's just say there was somebody, some special, I don't know, say just for the sake of drug cartel or something like that. I wanted, kind of stabilize, take out, or whatever it may be, boom, guess who I'm going to call?
Your special force. So what you're saying is, this is what I see you're saying is you have a very comprehensive plan outlined for border security to utilize National Guard and to utilize Coast Guard, and then to keep a special forces training that if there was a particular situation, you could send them in rather than subcontracting another company.
Yeah, exactly. Because they're subcontracting, and that way I can go ahead and this other special forces, by the way, to be honest with my vision, I guess, or to envision it, so to speak, it would be a little different. I know it's kind of probably scary for a lot of Americans even concept this, but they're not going to be your normal crew cut, nice shaven kind of people who you could say, oh yeah, I know that person's military. No, their job is to blend into the environment, so that way they can make headway. For instance, if you look at this incident that happened in Falcon Lake, well, guess what? I would have called them in. They've already searched the lake, set up the security perimeter without anybody knowing, and if there was a body there, they would have found it. And if there wasn't, they would have in and out, boom.
So it's more or less like a covert action force.
Exactly.
It's a covert action force. It's legally, it's legally formed. They have the right to be there. They're not doing anything in secret, but they're operating on a covert manner, like a plainclothes policeman would be in Houston. They're operating in a covert manner so that individuals won't recognize them, so they'll be able to be more effective.
Exactly. It's more like, let's just, if we had some in Afghanistan. That was one of the things that, when we first got into Afghanistan, and I'm trying to remember who our Secretary of Defense was. Was it Rumsfeld? Yeah, he was. I don't remember.
How can we forget him? And I did.
And anyway, how we were having problems with our military forces getting intelligence with the Afghan people. And, we were firing and sending these missiles and everything in this direction. And the local Afghans kind of looked at it and she said, wow, that's a nice, pretty air show. Said, what are you doing? Well, we're hitting the Taliban. And they said, well, they ain't there. And kind of looked at, well, where are they at? Well, I can tell you where they're at. They're over there. So our forces there started, they started blending in, so to speak. They started growing beards and stuff like that and looking like somewhat normal other than the skin tone. But then, policy came down and said, nope, we are not going to look like that. You will clean shave. You will do this. You will look like you're a military soldier. And I was thinking, well, under these circumstances, this is probably where camouflaging in comes in handy.
I would think so. I like the idea that you really have laid out a comprehensive plan for border security. This is something that could be put into motion. And if you would have the Second Amendment it, you're saying we can do that. We can put in a Second Amendment. We can amend it.
Well, actually, we don't have to amend them. That's just it. Well, as far as the Constitution, you don't have to amend the Constitution. What needs to be amended is the federal laws that are in place that govern nationalization and immigration.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
So are you saying there's a legal amendment to that federal law?
No. Well, you amend, the law, just kind of like you would want to amend, you ready for this? You amend Social Security. And
well, we're tweaking it. We're doing a little tweak job here. We're kind of tweaking it a little bit.
Exactly. As many times as that thing's been admitted, and look what we have at this point between, Medicaid, Medicare, SSI, SSDI, and all this wasn't even created back when Social Security was first passed in 1946, I believe it was.
No, it really wasn't. None of this was intended.
So that's all. You just got to go back and amend the federal law to say, okay, we need to tweak this up a little more because times have changed. No more than our framers kind of gave us the ability, if we wanted to tweak the Constitution if we think we needed to change something on a national level.
So you're saying the Constitution actually providing us with border security, and we're simply not doing it.
Exactly. I think it pretty much states in our Bill of Rights and in our Declaration of Independence pretty much say that, we have the right to defend ourselves and our prosperity and our way of life.
So we're saying Americans actually might perhaps, hey, you can say, wait a minute, you are taking away our Bill of Rights.
Oh, most definitely. If you're looking down the Second Amendment and you're saying, okay, no, you can't have a weapon anymore. No, that is not a benefit. That is a right, and it's right there. It's called, the Second Amendment, the Bill of Rights.
Which backs up the first.
Yes. Which means I have the right to call you whatever I want to call you.
And get away with it.
You will. So, yeah. And the other thing I was looking also at border security, just to look at it as well, is and that was what I was just talking as far as from the enforcement side. Now, it's easy to do enforcement, and one of the things is I don't say it's easy. It's more quantitative, I guess, to look at enforcement because you're able to see what you did and how to do it. But when you look also from the policy issue, redoing the federal legislation in reference to it does to immigration and stuff like that, that'd be another concept. But another component needs to be and it sounds kind of crazy, but education. And I mean by education through information dissemination or whatever venue needs to be, is that our State Department needs to start educating illegal immigrants from other countries on the process of how to become a U.S. citizen or how to come to the United States. How many people in different countries don't know exactly how to process or become a U.S. citizen or how to come and visit us or how to do that. We just kind of assume, hey, we're the land of the free. Come on over here. You put your foot on our soil. Hey, you made it. You're it. You got it. Here's everything you want. And that's not actually how it goes through. Now, whether that, and I know this sounds kind of, I don't want to say, I guess Reagan to some degree would call it progressive to some degree, and that would be, our State Department's, in Juarez or in other parts of Mexico or in other parts of the country saying, okay, the U.S. Embassy is going to have a seminar in your local community of how to process to be a U.S. citizen, what you need to do, how do you need to fill out the forms. You advertise, flyers, newspapers, radio, in their language saying, hey, look, the United States has now passed a new law, or the United States is going to do this, and so people know what our laws are when they come before they even get here. I think
that's a really good idea. The education process, especially in those border areas, to start an educational program that says this is what you have to do to come to this country. Because I do think some people don't know that. You just come across the border and you're taken care of. Like hospitals in California had to shut their doors because they couldn't afford to stay open because they're legally required to take care of illegal immigrants for nothing, so they had nobody paying them.
Yeah, but if we pass legislation, once again, and that my second part of that is about policy reform, and it says, okay, no illegal immigrants are going to get free education, or they're not going to get free medical care anymore, they're not going to get, Social Security, they're not going to get these things unless you've legally applied for citizenship or on a work visa and you're paying into the system. if those were in place, and then you educated that throughout, the parts of other nations that need to understand that, so that when they get here, you better be ready. That what your friend told you isn't exactly what was when you got here.
Cass, I have one other question, because you really have laid out, I think, a wonderful plan here, a comprehensive plan. And one other question I had for you was the Obama concept that they were going to, put stations along the border for illegal immigrants to come in and say, if you apply for citizenship, then you can vote.
Oh, heck no. No.
I think that's the only way he thinks he can be elected, is to engage in voter fraud.
And then once again, goes back to the U.S. Constitution, specifically states who can and cannot vote. Sometimes I can't help but chuckle when I hear, some of the things that kind of come out from that perspective or that administration. But there's no way in heck should they be allowed to vote, even if they're legal here for visa purposes or for student purposes or whatever it may be. Only American U.S. citizens should have the right to vote.
Well, I know when I was in school in France years and years ago, believe me, if I'd tried to vote, there would have been a problem. There were certain rights I had and certain rights I didn't have. And believe me, I had fewer rights and more rights. It didn't exist because I was a student. I was living there under the courtesy of that government. I was expected to abide by those laws. And here it's just the total opposite.
No, and that's why we need a lot of reform. Well, I hate using that reform too much often because it beats to the ground. But we need to get back to the basics. I guess I'll use that. Let's get back to the basics of what it is about running this country. Back to our constitutional principles. Back to empowering the people, American citizens, of being able to make a living and to be able to dream the American dream, so to speak.
Well, I like what you say about getting back to the basics, because this is a story that takes me back when I was a child in elementary school, and it was part of this university system. Daddy worked for a big oil refinery, so we were in a lot of different places. And there was a program there for what they call gifted students, and the program was to teach the students to think abstractly. And I was like in the fifth grade, and the fourth or fifth grade. And don't focus on punctuation. Don't focus on spelling. Someone else will do that for you someday. You need to learn how to think abstractly. I think abstractly, but I can't spell and punctuate worth a damn. I mean, there are certain basics that you need, and so I agree with what you're saying. Get back to the basics. I keep thinking about that when I have to use, God bless, spell check. When I have to use all that, we need a spell check on this whole country about getting back to basics, especially, in defending our borders, because we're not going to have any borders pretty soon.
You're absolutely right. It's all even coaches even say, let's get back to the fundamentals. You can be able to do all this and do that, but unless you have fundamentals, you're not going to be as effective as you can, because only talent can take you so far. If only athleticism can take you so far. You're going to need the fundamentals, and that's why we started at an early age to teach people or kids the fundamentals in any specific sport. Well, we also needed the fundamentals about people on what their rights are as citizens and their responsibility are as citizens in this country.
I see you as having a lot to offer. Not only that strong military background regarding border security, your work in health care, your ability to work with a budget, your ability to work with health care issues, which you do, your ability to work with other areas of law enforcement that are not military related, and your ability to work with the military. So I see you as a dynamite candidate.
Well, thank you, Dolly. I owe it all to the grace of God.
Well, this is what we all owe it to, and they're trying to say the Founding Fathers didn't believe this, but they did. And I'm not saying we haven't had bad governments and they haven't made bad mistakes, but that doesn't mean you throw the baby out with the bathwater. Just because bad things happen to people doesn't mean you have to embrace those, and doesn't mean you have to get totally rid of the government, because what you're saying, it goes back to what you're saying, you can change that. You don't have to do that anymore. It doesn't mean that the concepts that started this country weren't on the right road.
Yeah, and I think we just really got away from that. And I have different theories in reference to that, but and that's why and it's not going to be a fix overnight. But the first thing is we have to do is probably and I hate from this perspective. I don't say hate, but not to minimize the immigration and border security and other major issues are, but we really if it was a back to basics, one of the best things we could do is just revamp or get rid of our tax system and just go to something a little more simplistic, because it takes away a lot of the power and struggle that the IRS has, a lot of the power and things that big businesses are able to play against the small businesses. It just starts creating a level playing field in our tax system.
So you really have a plan for the tax system, too, and we do need a tax overhaul in this country. And that's what we need in a senator. We need a senator that thinks outside the box, like you, that thinks outside of his own state, like you do, because senators impact legislation everywhere. I think more Congress does, too. But the Senate really impacts everyone in the United States. So yes, we do need a tax overhaul. We do need something different because this tax system doesn't work.
No. People find a way to manipulate it. Business find a way to manipulate it. So, it's just about saying, okay, let's just keep it simple. That old thing, KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. I have too many acronyms I grew up with, I guess. Sound like Ross Perot when he was running for president. Just came up with these crazy acronyms. But just. We just need to keep it simple. I mean, let's not think too extravagant here. And what about this? And what about that? And I was giving a briefing today to a bunch of Paradigm students, and then they said, "But that's not the way it should be. That's not the way it should be." Well, I'm saying, "Yeah, you're right. It's not the way it should be. It's not the way it should be. But this is what the way it is, right? And this is what we got to do." So
I think the purpose of life is to simplify. As I grow older, I keep wanting to simplify. Life is very complex, and the purpose of it to me is to simplify, so that everyone can live accordingly.
Mm-hmm.
And that seems to be what you're doing to make us all understand what's going on.
And going back to the Board of Security and a couple of things I always give a recommendation from the perspective is, in reference to, people with needing health care or illegal immigrants needing health care or whatever it may be, food or whatever it may be, that's where our missionaries actually come into play a lot,
Exactly.
Our missionaries can go and help out. Our Catholic churches can go out there and help out. But better yet, if it's, the United Nations likes to get in everybody's business, well, why in the world isn't it in Mexico trying to help out them?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Sometimes I think the United Nations, that's
well,
what I think of them.
I strongly support the United States withdrawal from the United Nations.
Oh, so do I. It's just a big. It's just a burden upon everyone, and it creates problems. It doesn't solve any issues. Well, I think you've laid out a really comprehensive plan on border security, among other things. Border security, tax reform, local and state municipalities in regarding law and order.
You are listening to the MJH Experience on Blog Talk Radio.
We've also looked at financial reform of the tax structure.
We always go on a tangent, but I think it all fits in together, and that's a perspective. Is just
taking control of our nation again.
Yep. Yes, ma'am.
Making us proud of it.
Yes.
Mike, are we still on?
Yeah, we got 30 more seconds of streaming, and then we'll still be on the podcast.
That's okay. We can probably wrap it up here. Got a paper due.
Oh, okay.
But no, I really appreciate it once again, guys. I really enjoyed talking to you. It really inspires me. It really inspires me talking with y'all.
Well, we've enjoyed it very much. I know I have, and I'm sure Mike has too. And we really want to do everything in our power to help you get to where you're going in the Senate.
Absolutely.
And are you going to be with us next Wednesday?
Yeah, we can do next Wednesday.
Okay, Mike, you said it's going to be at 6 o'clock. Is that correct?
6 o'clock Central.
6 o'clock Central. Okay, yeah, 6 o'clock Central. We had
Well,
some confusion on that.
Central time zone, I believe.
Yeah, both of us are, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So,
or as Mike said today, GMT time. He even went so far as to say, okay, wait a minute, it's GMT. But 6 o'clock Central and 7 o'clock Eastern.
Okay.
Yeah,
and also, we want to recommend that anybody who wants to donate to Cas For Senate, please do. Cas, give your website and everything.
Yep, it's Cas For Senate, CASFORSENATE. And you just get on there. There's everything's secured site. Just go ahead and, donate whatever you can, and then trust me, we'll put it to good use fiscally.
And yeah, if it's a small amount, go ahead and do it if that's all you can afford, because you can handle that too.
Yeah.
Okay, Cass, it's wonderful talking to you.
Take care, Dolly. See you, Mike.
Too.
Later on, Cass. You have a good one.
Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Okay, Mike. I like the idea of that news segment that you were talking about.
WTF News?
Yeah, I like that. I like it a lot because there is a friend of mine, an entertainer, most of my friends are. He sent me a clip today. I laughed so hard I almost peed my pants. He sent me a clip. And at first I thought it was something from Texas because it sounds like something we would do. Personally, I think that stuff is funny, like water skiing in the ditch, in the mud. But they were putting some kind of, not really terrible things, but they were putting some explosive things in a toilet. They had rigged the toilet to blow up. And they were just... bombs. Yeah, I thought it was. In Texas, they were Russian engineers. I laughed so hard. I thought, that's the kind of stuff that, like, Obama is going on. Now he's apologizing to Guatemala for what he says we did in World War II. Well, I saw that picture of him when he bent over to kiss that Arab Sheikh's hand. And if he's going to apologize to anything, I'd like for him to apologize for that butt. Because as my daddy would say, you could drive a team and wagon past that and never see daylight. So sometimes you got to like those kinds of shows. That sounds absolutely exciting. Cocaine in his rectum, and yet it wasn't his, huh?
Well, they said in his buttocks. Let's do a little test. Let's do a little test thing. Let me get my switchboard back up here, and I'll go ahead and read the story. I need to practice anyway, so I'll go ahead and. Oh, you know what? I don't have my daggone sound effects.
Well, that is so funny, though. Cocaine in his buttocks, and he didn't, and they weren't his. I mean, come on, you got a butt bandit walking around here.
Well, the funniest part is what they found bags of weed and bags of rock cocaine in the guy's butt, and he claimed the weed, but said the cocaine wasn't his.
I didn't have to be a butt bandit always. Wait a minute, this one's big enough. Let's stick it up there.
Let me pull it up. I'll read it to you. I was going to do the I did a little intro for Stupid News or WCF News, and I was going to play that, but I can't do it now because what happened was I lost my internet connection for a minute, and when I pulled the switchboard back up, all that was gone. So I can't do the intro, but I can read the story. Here it is. Yeah. Okay. A Florida man. My internet connection is really screwing up right now. I don't know what it is. Actually, I do know what it is. It's one of the access points. Okay. A Florida man denies cocaine found in his buttocks is his. And the story reads, when sheriff's deputies allegedly discovered bags of marijuana, this is the AP for you, bags of marijuana and cocaine between a man's buttocks. They said he gave a quick explanation. Manatee County detectives said Raymond Stanley Roberts told them, the white stuff is not mine, but the weed is. Deputies stopped a 25-year-old Wednesday in Bradenton for speeding. Officers said they smelled marijuana and searched him. That's when they allegedly found a bag of marijuana between Robert's buttocks.
Oh, my God, Bradenton, Florida. My girlfriend lives there. My best friend.
Oh, really?
She lives in Bradenton.
That's it, Bradenton, Florida. Okay. Well, at the end, they said they actually tried to call this guy. Well, like we're going to do tomorrow night. But anyway, the story continues. Officers then discovered another bag in there. It doesn't say whether it's in whether it's up. When I say buttocks, I think they mean between his cheeks, but they could mean I don't know. So anyway, officers then discovered another bag in there. The report said it contained 27 pieces of rock cocaine.
But that's got to be typical walking.
The Bradenton Herald reported Roberts was arrested for drug possession and has bonded out of jail. The person who answered Friday at the phone number listed for Roberts said that it wasn't his number. But I have a feeling it probably is.
That's got to be harder to walk than in thong underwear. I mean, that's got to be rough. I think that's so funny. I think this sounds like a wonderful segment.
Well, thanks. Actually, where I got the idea from is two places I got the idea from. One of the local state radio stations around here has a segment called Stupid News, and they've had that on for years. I'm not really actually copying that, but putting it together with the Strange News feed. It's like an RSS feed by the Associated Press, and I subscribe to that feed. And there's just always this funny stuff coming up, and I've tried to do it before, but you see, like with this BTR, I've never really stuck with it like I've been doing lately since you've been involved in it, and I think one of the reasons we'll have a lot of people calling in is because like today, I scheduled the show to like 11 o'clock this afternoon, but if people know that they can that we'll be on every night at 7, and then they can make the point to tune in and.
I think that's the real point. And this is a funny, funny show. I love stuff like this. Life is difficult and complex. And it's nice sometimes not to take life too seriously and to be able to relate to this, and just laugh about it. Oh, yeah,
definitely. And like with Cass and with Gazelle Mead and the shows we've done lately, it's been kind of serious. I haven't been like joking around that, and stuff like that, because serious topics and stuff like that. U.S. Senate and authors of books and everything.
But you do have to have some fun.
Seriously.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, but I mean, like the shows that starting tomorrow night, the shows. Like I said, I don't know if every weeknight is too much for you, but whenever you can, I'd appreciate it if you would call in and be the co-host. I think that'd be great.
Okay.
And just like all that stuff you see, like that link you posted last night about the Soviets in Congress.
Oh my God! I'll send you that clip. That was so funny. I laughed so hard, and then it said Russian engineers, and I emailed it back. I said, "What the hell? I thought this was in Texas." I mean, we do things like that. Like guys will go out in rural Texas and they'll get water skis and they'll ski in the muddy water in the ditch. And I know that might be redneck stuff, but sometimes it's funny.
Well, actually, I'm watching like the whole time we've been doing this show. America's Funniest Home Videos is on, and I've got the sound turned down. But if you heard me chuckle a couple of times, it's because I'm watching this and they do stuff like that. And it's I mean, like Cass is talking about, securing the border in Texas and all this, and I'm over here chuckling because some jackass is doing something on the Funniest Home Videos. And one of the funniest ones that they showed, I couldn't help but laugh. I was listening to you guys, but that was on. And this guy falls asleep on the couch, like in his early 20s, and his friends take the couch and carry it outside and set it by the road. And a car drives by and blows the horn and scares the shit out of the guy. He rolls on the grass and he wakes up, he's outside, doesn't know what's going on. It's just like one of the funniest clips ever, And, yeah, so, they haven't showed anybody water skiing in ditches on Funniest Home Videos, but maybe you should go down there and capture that. Just bring a video camera with you. That show pays you like $10,000 if your video wins, and then.
Oh, I mean that stuff is so funny. When I think about some of the stuff that I did, when you were younger, I mean, it's just maybe the South is different. I think, well, of course we're different than the North, but it was just fun times. And they say, oh, that's disgusting. Well, I'm sorry, I can go to state dinners, but I can water ski in the mud too. You got to be able to do both sides. I think that sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
What'd you say?
I was just going to tell you about the first time I went snow skiing, because I grew up on water, so I knew all about water skiing and all that stuff. And we go up to snowshoe, and friends were like, "You want to start on a beginner slope until you get your legs and figure out." I was like, "No, I'm good." It's just like water skiing. In my mind, I'm thinking it's just like water skiing, except instead of getting pulled, like, getting pulled by the rope, the boat, that you just be going downhill and, no big deal. So they're like, okay, you got the right idea. So thank goodness I started out on the intermediate slope and not like the advanced one. But, I'm doing fine. I'm doing great. Until I realized that I did not know how to stop.
That's a good one. It's not like the boat's going to stop and you're going to have pipes away. You don't have to stop. You got to get to, I've never been a skier. I've never been athletic. I was just not one of those types of people that was very athletic. My brother could do all that stuff. But yeah, I guess you got to know how to stop. I water skiing in the mud in the ditch.
Well, now I know. You just put your knees together and the skis point inward and it slows you down. But I didn't know that, so I just got up to like a really high rate of speed and started tumbling, and there were rental skis everywhere, and some little 10-year-old kid picks up one of my ski poles and brings it over to me, and he like does the power stop, kicks snow on my face basically, hands me my ski pole, and he's like, "Way to go, dickhead!" So
Like I said, I was never athletically inclined, but water skiing in a ditch, a pickup truck pulls you. You're just sliding through the water is all that does. But like I was raised on concrete, so I didn't get out and do a lot of that stuff, as a child. It was different stuff, I mean, that's why I like to be out with the horses. Once a year, Daddy go up north to southern Illinois, and you train horses once a year up there. So that's where I got my love of horses. And I like to be out there with them and doing those things. And maybe if I'd been raised in the country, I wouldn't like it, But I just think that stuff is funny. I think it's hilarious, and it just totally and completely cracks me up, when I see that happening.
Yeah,
so not knowing how to stop.
You really need to capture that on video, because funny stone videos, they will pay you. Like if it wins the episode, they give you $10,000. If it wins the season, they give you $100,000.
I'd have to go down home sometime when somebody's doing it and find out. Just like at when I don't know if they still did it as far as back in the 80s, even they were doing it. At the Texas County Fair, they had farting and burping contests. I'm sorry, this is Texas. We do those things, I mean, my mother would say, oh, she wouldn't approve of that, but that stuff is funny, I mean, it's just totally funny. And sometimes you need something that's funny, that's just a break from reality, because it is so unreal or so surreal if you choose. Just a break from reality, just to relax and let go of some of the stress, But I never thought of that, not knowing how to stop on skis. I think that would be something.
Until I got halfway down that hill. I had no clue how to stop. Same way I learned how to skateboard, by the way, because I grew up on a hill in Pennsylvania. So when I was 7, my new stepdad, or soon-to-be stepdad actually, bought me a skateboard. And, so I started about halfway up the hill, and, at the end of the hill, the street, at the intersection, it was like a T. It was like there was a house at the end of the hill. So, I'm going down there on my skateboard, and once again, realized I did not know how to stop, so I hit the gravel and went through the fence of the house, and it was... And you see, when I was a kid, I was always messing myself up. I mean, just... I mean, I could go into some stories, but, I busted my chin, just like road rash all the time, and I was just always messing myself up. My grandmother, she was always like, "Oh, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, what you do now?" Well, skateboarding down the hill, she'd be like, "Well, good for you then. You should."
Good for you then. You deserve it.
That's stupid. You deserve it. But unless I really got hurt, and then it's like, stitches, all that stuff, But my attitude was, hey, I'm still alive. I'll be all right, I'd stand up, look at myself. I didn't cry. My chin was hanging out. I split my chin wide open on the gym set.
Well,
I'll be all right.
Yeah, when you do the things you do when you're younger and you don't realize the danger in them. I remember one time one of my best friends, actually. Well, now when you say girlfriends, people think something differently, but it wasn't like that. We called each other girlfriends in those days. Anyway,
right.
My girlfriend was married, and her husband owned this company. And I was pretty young at the time. I must have been 18, 19, something like that. And we were all out on the river in this boat. Well, anyway, there was a man that worked for this company, and his wife had been flirting with my girlfriend's husband. So we decided to teach her a lesson. Now, mind you, I can't swim. I don't care Coast Guard or not, I can't swim. I didn't know, as my daddy would say, shit from Shinola. So we got her out there. This is a big river. In that boat, Margie Sue I shouldn't have said her name. Anyway, she had never driven a speedboat before, but we got her out there. She was going so fast in that boat, it was just bumping, and people were waiting and screaming at us from the shore, and she was giving her what for, that if she didn't shape up, I was going to throw her overboard. Well, I wasn't about to say I was scared, because that would have meant I would have been going the one overboard. She was so scared, she lay down on the floor of the boat, crying and shaking, but believe me, she never did that again. And the things, I mean, I didn't have a swim. We didn't have any life jackets. And we're out there on that boat in the middle of this huge river, going 100 miles an hour, however fast it would go. You just don't think about the danger of those things when you're younger.
Yeah.
You know, my greatest danger now that I engage in, a friend of mine and I, we drove down to Florida, so I wanted to do some shooting on the way back. So one of my most fun times was going through Alabama. Of course, I like to shoot all the horses, but going through Alabama. And there was a National Guard, a National Guard helicopter above us. So I said, Jimmy, I've got to get out and take a picture of that. And we're driving. So we're in a pickup truck, okay? So I'm getting out the window. I couldn't get out far enough. So he's driving with one hand, holding onto my leg with the other hand, and I'm shooting over the top of the pickup truck, and these guys are waving at me in the helicopter. That's not a gorgeous picture, but it's one of my favorites, you know, because you do. Hell, I could have fallen out of that truck and cracked my head, but I didn't. But sometimes you got to do things like that just to have fun. But I don't know if I'd ever go so far as stick rock cocaine up my butt, because that would be worse. That would be worse than thong underwear, because I cannot handle that.
Well, apparently, they pulled him over for speeding. So apparently he was driving, he was sitting down. And I guess when the cops went to pull him over, he probably grabbed the drugs or whatever from wherever they were in the car and stuck them down his pants where he didn't think they'd find them, but they did. That's the most logical scenario I can come up with.
Probably is the most logical. You know, unless sometimes, though, I've heard, you know, that they will tape them inside their butt. And who the hell wants to use it after that?
Well, what they do is, like, when they're trying to smuggle it through airports and stuff like that, they'll like put it in a condom and swallow it, or stick it up their rear end, that's why they do cavity searches at airports.
And who wants to smoke that stuff after it's been up somebody's butt?
well, by the time you redistribute it or whatever you want to call it, it's like the people buying it don't realize that it was up somebody's butt, I guess. But I mean, that's why they put it in a condom, so it doesn't get contaminated or whatever, however you want to put it. But just the idea of it. So. Kiddies, next time you decide to do drugs, just remember the drugs you're doing might have been up somebody's butt.
Oh, yeah. That would be a good thing. And you could have a little video of it and show somebody doing something like that on the video, and then show somebody out on the street selling it. Say, here, want to try this? This is pure. This is fresh. Yeah, right. Oh, I think that's a really funny segment, that kind of news. I think that's just really hilarious. I don't think it's going to be fun. And I do hope Cass makes it for the Senate. I think he stands a real good chance because, he really laid out some plans tonight.
Well, the one advantage he has in this election, anybody running for office in this election, this upcoming midterm, they have the advantage of everybody is trying to get the incumbents out. So he's got a pretty good chance with that. Plus, he makes sense. People can understand them. And, I mean, if I can understand them, I figure most people can, because, most of these politicians that you listen to, they call it double talking and all that stuff. It's like, you listen to what they're saying, but they really don't say anything. And Cass actually, he explains it. And even if somebody's not really that interested in politics, they can listen to him and tell that he knows what he's talking about. And he's not in it for, to manipulate the system, make a career out of it, and it's like some of the stuff you mentioned today. And these career politicians, nothing wrong with being a career politician, unless you're I don't know, you're screwing
you lose
up
sight of what
you
lose sight of what you originally ran for. They lose sight of their responsibilities to the country, and all they begin to think about is how to keep their office and the benefits, and they lose sight of what they came there for. And I don't think he would ever lose sight like that. He doesn't seem like he's very down to earth, and I hope a lot of people support him. I hope a lot of people call in or will click into his website for donations. And I know we're in a recession, but sometimes you have to do these things, and unfortunately, it does take money to run a campaign.
Oh yeah, definitely. So the more we help him get the word out there, then the more chance he has of people hitting up his website. That's why I put his links on all the show pages and stuff like that. So people can go to the site, read up, all the information, make a donation, spread the word themselves. That's one thing I encourage is, even if you don't live in Texas, I mean, we're just talking about Cass in specific here, but, with these Senate races, no matter what state you live in, like Cass or, Virginia, I mentioned that on Facebook last night. People should really pay attention to Virginia politics because we...
oh, absolutely, they should pay attention to Virginia politics.
Yeah, because, we're doing it right, in my opinion. And, we have our issues, the election's coming up, so, you see all these smear ad campaigns and commercials on TV and stuff. But, it's like any place else. But the thing is, John Warner was a career politician. He's retired now, but he was a senator for years, and he's the one who not solely responsible, but he's the one who kept when they were doing the base closings, the BRAC Commission came around here, and we have a lot of military around here. It's a big part of our economy, and the BRAC Commission came around talking about closing bases, and John Warner's the guy. He just put his foot down and said, no, you're not closing that. No, you're not closing that. No, you're not moving those ships. No, you're not moving those planes. And we still got all the military here, and plus it came down to in Virginia Beach, the mayor of Virginia Beach, Myra Ovendorf, she actually put her foot down too. And she was career mayor. She's been a mayor of Virginia Beach since I was a little kid. I don't even remember what year she actually started being mayor. But I think she came with Virginia Beach. When Virginia Beach became a city, I think she was automatically mayor since then. I don't know. And she was mayor forever up until a few years ago. And she really put her foot down with the BRAC Commission. And they said that, there's an air base in Virginia Beach, Oceana Naval Air Station, and they were talking about moving all the planes and squadrons and everything down to Jacksonville, Florida. So BRAC Commission comes up here, and they said, okay, well, these houses are in the path of, it's called a crash zone, where a plane could possibly crash, and she needed to tear down those houses. And she's like, no. They're like, well, we're going to move everything to Jacksonville then. And she's like, go ahead. Well, come to find out, she just called their bluff. It was hilarious. Come to find out later on, after they said they were going to leave the base here and everything. Come to find out, Jacksonville didn't want the planes there because they're noisy. They're very, very noisy planes. We're talking about F-18 Super Hornets, and they're not allowed to shake the sound barrier anymore over populated areas. But I remember when they could, and it's like thunder times 100. But even just the noise of those planes. If you're watching TV or talking on the phone, you can't hear anything when those planes go over. So anyway, Jacksonville, long story short, they really didn't want the planes down there. So, it was all this big bluff, and, she just stuck to her guns, and, So, here in Virginia, it's like, we're not stubborn, but we're not stupid, No,
I think
the federal government or the, What's that?
I like Virginia politics. I think they have a hold on what's right.
Yeah, see, this is a very conservative state for the most part, at least politically. And, even the Democrats are kind of conservative, So, it's like, when you talk about that Republican-Democrat thing, and that's what I like about, Blog Talk Radio, when you categorize, like this show we did tonight, they got they got a bunch of different categories. But when it comes to politics, they have politics, which is like basically general. Then they have politics conservative and politics progressive. And, of course, we're in the conservative area there. But I like the way they put it, conservative and progressive. Because, it's not just Democrat and Republican. And see, here in Virginia, the Democrats and Republicans, we all actually get along with each other. Everybody's friends.
That's the way it should be. That's the way it should be. It's become so polarized. Obama he is the most polarizing president we've ever had. He has divided us. He's divided us in this nation more than we've ever been divided. He's polarized everybody. He's enhanced racial tensions to the max. It's not a good thing. Like you said, we should all work together, all get along.
Yeah, we really should. And like, all that list of stuff you just mentioned and the economy, the recession, and everything, like, it really hasn't hurt us that bad here in Virginia because just the way we do things here. It's kind of like we're obviously not separated from the rest of the country, but Virginia is a commonwealth, and we kind of like do things our own way here. And so when somebody starts flapping their gums in Washington, if it's bullshit, we call bullshit.
That's the truth.
Yeah,
I'm going to have to get going to work. I've got stuff on the computer I have to do, and I like this idea of coming in at 6 o'clock because that allows me to get my work done before 1, 2 o'clock in the morning.
That's exactly why I moved the show up earlier, because when we wind something up at 10 o'clock, and sometimes, we continue on the podcast until 11, well then, after that I got to wait for the podcast to process, because I want to get everything out as soon as I can. Mm-hmm. So I got to wait for the podcast to process, and I got to take the podcast, edit it, put it out on YouTube and the web, the communications creation site and everything, and it takes a little while to do. So yeah, exactly. I was up until like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and then I was supposed to be up at 5 o'clock for work in the morning myself, and that didn't happen this morning because I drank too much beer last night, and I had the worst headache. I don't even know why. I didn't drink that much beer, but I had the worst headache. I hardly got out of bed today.
Happens to everybody sooner or later. So I'm going to go, and I'm going to run in there and do my computer work. So, and this is nice. It's 7:30 here. I'll be done by 10 o'clock, and I can get to bed on time.
That's awesome. Yeah, me too.
Okay, and then I'm talking to some other people, the Duck Creek drummers. I'd love to be able to let them promote themselves a little bit. And the Oneida 7th Generation Dancers. The Duck Creek drummers are known nationally. It's a Oneida Indian troupe. They do vocables and drumming. They're really fantastic.
Cool.
So I was talking to them about it. Like you said, that's kind of music. Well, Brûlé is very serious with their reconciliation. But anyway, I'll let you go.
And with them again.
Oh, yeah, with Brûlé, absolutely. I keep in touch with his wife, with Kathy, because I just think they're an awesome group. And I met them when they were at Summerfest in Milwaukee, and I just thought they were awesome, and I tried to keep in touch with them, so that we know what's going on. And you've got to see one of their shows sometime, because
that would be awesome.
It is awesome. It sent chills up my spine. It brings tears to my eyes. It's a very spiritual show. It's very uplifting. But again, I better get into that computer and start working. So then I'll talk to you later then.
Okay, Dolly.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye. Oh, yeah, I got to close. Okay, well, I ain't got my switchboards now. Oh, well. Well, for the MJH Experience with Dolly Miller-Brennan, this is MJH saying peace, God bless,